That's my cell phone number on the screen right now, 917-375-7741. And anyone can call that has tuned in to one of my broadcasts or has attended one of my events with any color questions that you may have. Down below at the bottom of the page, you see there's two different emails for me. One is from the Worldwide Hair Colorists Association, where I answer any questions about any color by anyone who is a licensed professional. And the Tom at Chromastics is specifically for chromastics questions. All right, here we go. Let's go to here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover the different ways to formulate, when to change the developer, when to change the dye load, and which tones to choose. And then we're going to go on to when you should say no in the salon. Now, the examples of everything that's covered in this webinar are available to view at no charge on YouTube. Go to YouTube, go to search, type my name, Tom Dispenza, join the group, and there are more than 60 color videos. You can also view the previous Master Colorist videos from 2022 at the Worldwide Hair Colorist Association.org site. Remember, that's www.hca.org. Just click on Master Colorist and the videos are all free to watch. And you can go on from that point to getting your Master Colorist degree. Now, it's okay if you disagree with anything that I say, or if you've learned differently. Just make sure that your information is from a real source and not just any internet website. The internet is loaded with bad information, particularly from color experts. Now, I watch many internet websites and I'm amazed at the bad information that's out there. And as much as I want to, I never comment or disagree with anything that I've heard or seen on the internet. And why don't I comment? Because people believe what they see on the internet, and it's not my job to change anyone's beliefs. Very simple. Just be careful of what you're looking at. Let's go on now to different ways to formulate. There are three basic hair color formulas that I use, and hopefully most of you use very similar ones. One is a single color plus developer. It's usually used for gray coverage or for tonal change. I'll explain that in the next slide. Two colors plus developer is usually for color and tone on gray hair, and I'll explain that further. And then three colors plus developer is when you have a slight alteration of one of the primary shades, or you want a slight alteration to one of the primary shades. Now, all of this is available on videos on YouTube. So here we go with a single color plus developer. For neutral results on white hair, you can choose any color neutral plus developer, but if your neutral is cool, because not everybody's neutrals are true neutrals. Some of them have green base, and some of them have an ash base, or some of them have a gray base. Those are not true neutrals. A true neutral color on white hair should look neutral when it's finished processing. If your color is a little cool, you may need to add anywhere from 3 to 5 grams of warmth, and the warmth depends upon what your base color is and what it is, the tone that you're seeing. Now, single color, when you place it on, when you want tonal results on naturally pigmented hair. So you can choose any tone plus developer. So this means that if you put a blue-violet color on a natural hair, you end up with more of a tobacco shade. If you use a red-orange plus developer, and you put it on natural hair color, you generally end up with an auburn shade. Now, there are exceptions, and once again, there are examples of everything on YouTube. When you use two colors plus developer, generally it's for salt and pepper hair when you want to see a tonal result. So in other words, you're using 45 grams of neutral, and then you may add 15 grams of red violet, or you may add some sort of a deep gold color to a large amount of red orange, like the second example there. 45 grams of red orange plus 15 grams of gold. For pigmented hair, when you want to have extra lightening and tone is desired, then you may use, for instance, 45 grams of high lift plus 15 grams of a deep color. That gives you a beautiful high lift color. Just remember that the rule of lightening, um, uh, mixing color and working color applies when you're using 3 parts of high lift. So whatever color you choose actually becomes 3 levels lighter. There's videos on it if you want to check it out. If you're using a lightening cream, for instance, you may want to use it with equal parts of color because lightening cream has a lower ammonia content than high lift creams. And if you're using it equal parts with color, that means your color becomes 2 levels lighter. And then thirdly, what we have is 3 colors plus developer. Now, occasionally you'll mix 3 colors together, but it's for very specialized shades. Now, most common is when you use 45 grams of color plus 15 grams of a second color, because one of them is the primary, secondary, and then the second one is your secondary color. But then you add 2 to 8 grams of a third color, but you don't add extra developer for it if it is a concentrate. You do add if you want to have your overall color be slightly lighter. The first 2 colors determine the overall tone. The third smaller color is a slight adjustment to whichever of the first 2 colors you choose. Another example of a 3 color plus developer is when you use equal parts of 3 different colors. And then all 3 influence both the level and tone, except I keep this to very specific instances. For instance, if I'm using a color and it's a neutral color, then I may add gold to it to make it a warm neutral, and then I may add a tone to it to either make it an ash color or a tobacco color or any other or a red violet or a red orange, whatever. You have many choices. Once again, there's plenty of videos on YouTube. And then remember this, artificial tones are rarely enough to neutralize natural tones. So if you're using level 6 color with 20 volume and you use it on level 4 hair, natural level 4, you will never look like a level 6 color because it will always appear warm unless you make adjustments to the formula. Artificial tones must be slightly deeper or cooler than the natural tones in order to neutralize, and unless you're bleaching the hair first and then you're toning it. The exception is hair that is first lightened or bleached to palest yellow and then prior to toning, and then you can tone to a pastel color. Palest yellow is the color of the protein of the hair, not excessive pigment that's left in the hair. It is the protein of the hair. Now we're going to talk about changing the developer up. Developer, first of all, remember, is responsible for lightning and color deposit. The more lightning requires a stronger or higher volume of developer, or more lightning requires higher ammonia content. That's why high lift blondes always have higher ammonia content than regular blondes. It's also why you don't ever see a high lift color that is non-ammonia. They're always made with ammonia. Coarser textured hair often requires a stronger developer, and finer texture hair often requires a weaker developer. So here's examples. So remember what I said, developer is responsible for lightning. Higher developer equals, or excuse me, higher developer or increasing the developer's strength means that you have a higher lifting ability of the color. So if you're using 20 volume developer and switch to 30 volume developer, then you get additional lift from that formula. However, what you may not know is that the higher the developer's strength, the faster the color develops. So if there's a video on YouTube about this, and I think I show either a brown or a blonde, I'm not sure which, and it shows the development over time using 20 volume and using 30 volume. And you always get faster color development with higher developer. When to also change the developer. Remember what I said, more lightning requires stronger developer or higher ammonia. Higher ammonia can be achieved by adding a lightning cream to any color formula. But lightning creams increase the lightning, but they also lighten the actual tonality of the color. So if you're using 45 grams of let's say a level 8 color, which is a natural a blonde shade, and you add 15 grams of lightning cream, the what you created is 60 grams of level 9 color. Yes, here you created level 9, even though you've used level 8, because 15 grams of any addition to a hair color formula causes it to increase by 1 level. Coarser texture can also require stronger texture. For instance, medium textured hair, 20 volume, will lighten approximately 2 levels. But on coarse textured hair, that same 20 volume may only lighten between 1 and 1.5 levels. And it depends upon both the ethnic background of the client or the person and the depth of their eye color. So dark brown eyes are someone who has dark brown eyes will require a higher developer in order to get the same amount of lightning that you get on a lighter eye color. Finer textured hair may require, and usually requires, a less developer or a weaker developer. So finer textured hair, you may only need 10 volume for gray coverage or for tonal change. And the reason is because there's less cortex, and because there's less cortex, there's less natural color. So it's easier to change with finer textured hair, but also it can go too dark sometimes. If you're using 20 volume and you apply it, it may get a little bit darker than you anticipate because it absorbs too much color, and too much color remains in the hair and it becomes slightly darker than you intended with whatever shade that you're using. When to change the dye load. Now, this is really interesting. Dye load determines the depth of the color, but it reacts differently on different textures. The dye reacts differently on hair from different ethnic backgrounds also. So it reacts differently on hair from Japan or from China or from India or from Europe. Dye load reacts differently on hair that has different skin tone and different eye color. So the actual amount of dye in a color does not react the same on all hair types. There's always a change depending upon multiple different factors. Now, here is a typical chart that represents units of dye in American level systems, typical American level systems. Now, remember, look over here. Dye progression is not linear. That means the difference between a level 10 and a level 8 is not double the dye load. It's just simply, in this case, it's a little bit more. But then when you jump from a 9 to an 8, it is double. But then when you jump from an 8 to a 7, it's not. So there is no there's no progression that you're aware of. It has to do with light absorption and light reflection. Um, Take a typical dark blonde. A typical dark blonde color in the American levels system has a little bit more, has approximately 12 units of color. Now, the units of color are based on molar weight because all color is not the same. Depending upon which two shades you mix together, you may get um, a level 2 color, or you may get a level 8 color. There's just no predicting unless you know how the colors work. Also, the thing about double dye load is not true. What you've learned about double dye loads, for instance, look at dark blonde. Dark blonde is 12 units of color. If you double the dye load in dark blonde, it becomes 24. Well, 24 is a very, very deep medium brown color. It's not a double dye load. So whenever you see double N's in hair color, remember that double N does not represent a double dye load. It simply represents deeper color. Now, dye load determines the depth of color. But any one color can be translucent to opaque at the same level. For instance, there are 4 variations in each level, and the human eye can actually see 40 variations of depth, not 10. We created 10 levels of lightning, 1 through 10, but your eye can see many, many, many more. And another thing takes place also, and that is when you mix, if you're missing level 7, and so you decide to mix together a 6 and an 8, the level 7 that you create is more opaque than making level 8 by adding a lightning cream to level 6. And the reason for that is because remember, it's not linear. So the more dye that's in something, the more the deeper the color appears. Let me go backwards here. Go back to this chart. So let's say that I need a level 9 color. So if I want to go in and I want to create a level 9 from by mixing, excuse me, let me start all over again. Let's say that I want to create light blonde, but I don't have light blonde. So I'm going to mix together a 10 and the 6, which gives me 13.5 total units. And then I divide it by 2, and that gives me 7. So that's not exactly, it gives me a little bit less than a 7. So that is not exactly the same as having a level 8 color in a tube. If I'm missing level 6 and I want to mix together level 4 and level 8, I mix them together and I end up with uh, uh, 20 what 23 grams, 24 grams, whatever it is. And in this case I get almost a perfect dark blonde. So there's no for sure when you're mixing. But if you're mixing a little bit of lightning cream in with color, it automatically jumps up one level because you've diluted the dye load. So, okay, now let's talk about tonalities and which tones to choose. Here's all the different tones I want to talk about. Auburn and strawberry, eggplant and plum. Those are all some sort of a red shade. Ash shades, because you have smoke ash, true ash, soft ash, and tobacco. Um, uh, then you also have silver and platinum. Silver and platinum colors are actually blue violet based colors. So they are in fact cool colors. You have cream and beige and teal and gray colors. And then you have all of the different reds. You have Irish red, French red, Italian red, Scottish red, American reds, electric reds, and then brunettes. So every single one of these colors is on YouTube, and you can see how the actual formulas, how to create them um, in your salon. So let's start with auburn and strawberry. Auburn colors always contain brown, regardless of whether it's natural or artificial. So if you're using a color, if your natural color is brown, then you don't have to add brown if you're using a red shade. Strawberry shades are always blondes. But remember this, gold is a much better softener than neutral. In other words, if you're going to soften a strawberry shade, you soften it by using gold color, not by adding neutral. And the reason is because neutral, when you're mixed with red orange, causes a slight shift because of the couplers that are used, and your strawberry colors end up looking a little red violet. But this does not happen when you're using gold. Eggplant colors and plum colors are generally a combination of red violet and brown, and usually they're medium or dark levels. But there's two ways to create them. You can create them by using neutral or golden brown. But if you use a neutral brown, you get a stronger red violet effect. If you're using a golden shade, then and adding it to your red violet, then you get a brighter eggplant or plum color. But occasionally, some manufacturers make deep blonde shades that are also violet colored, and they call them very light plum shades. Now, ash shades are fascinating because you have 4 shades that you use for pigmented hair, and then the same 4 shades for white hair. Now, it doesn't matter whether your hair is pigmented, whether it is white, 100% white, or whether it's salt and pepper. If you're working on white or salt and pepper hair, you start with neutral and you add green if you want soft ash. Soft ash means that there's a little bit of warmth coming through. Blue green means you get a true ash color so that you have almost no warmth coming through the color at all. It's just ash. But if you use blue, you end up with very smoky results. Smoky means that there's not only is there no warmth, the color looks deeper than you expect it to be. So a level 3 smoky ash, a level 4, a light smoky ash brown will appear closer to a medium smoky ash color. Whenever you add blue violet and neutral together, you end up with tobacco colors. Another way of saying tobacco is warm ash. I know that sounds like a contradiction, but the reason that you create a warm ash color when you add blue violet to neutral is because there's a slight pinkness that comes through in the color, even though you don't add red to it. Now, if you're working on pigmented hair, you can use any of these shades and you end up with, if you use green color on natural pigmented hair, you end up with a soft, warm ash color. If you use blue-green, you end up with more of an ash shade, blue, smoky, and blue-violet, once again, back to a very warm tobacco color. Now, silver and platinum colors can only be achieved on palest yellow hair. Palest yellow is generally achieved by bleaching, but the hair must never, never, never be bleached to white. The reason that you don't bleach hair to white is because when you remove that final small tiny bit of yellowness from the hair, you're not bleaching color from the hair. You're destroying the actual protein of the cortex, and you end up with hair that falls apart. So, but once again, not everyone can be silver or platinum. Why? Because it depends upon using a toner that is, if you're using a toner that's silver or platinum and you're putting it on someone whose skin has been lightened to more of a yellow or a stronger yellow color because of their skin tones, then you're never going to see silver or platinum. You're going to see a bizarre shade that's like silver or platinum mixed with yellow. You can't use toner on white hair because that doesn't guarantee you're going to see platinum or silver unless you have very, very light skin tones. And certain ethnic backgrounds automatically indicate, for instance, Japanese, Korean, some Chinese, coarse, um, Caribbean backgrounds, they have darker skin and you end up with much more yellow in the hair. But remember that platinum and silver tones are always blue or blue violet. And once again, there's a lot of videos on YouTube's about creating tones. Cream and beige colors. Cream colors are always blondes. Beige colors can be anything from lightest blonde to light brown. The reason that it doesn't go beyond light brown is because when you have darker color than light brown, you can no longer see the beige in the shade. The brownness of the color takes over. So therefore, you can only see light beige at light brown or lighter. Cream colors are a combination of gold and a very small amount of red orange. For instance, you may have um, uh, 60 grams of level 8, 9, or 10 gold. So you put a very tiny amount of red orange, being any for maybe only 2 grams, 3 grams of red orange in it, and you end up with a beautiful, beautiful cream color. Beige is always cool, or warm beige is always a combination of gold and blue violet, whereas cool beige is a combination of gold and green. Now, this sounds bizarre because you're thinking, wait a minute, how can you have green and gold or green and blue violet and not get some weird shade? It's a chemistry thing. It has nothing to do with the color wheel or the way that you think color works. It has to do with chemistry. And this is how you create golden, warm beige, and this is how you create cool beige. Teal and gray colors. Teal is created by mixing a blue and green concentrate together, and it can be lightened with any type of clear color. So if you want a high lift teal green, then you mix it with XL, you add XL Super to it. If you want a blonde shade that is teal, then you add XL cream to it. If you want it to be deposit only, then you add clear to it, and clear can be either in a liquid form or it can be in a creamy consistency from tube color. Clear simply means no color in the tube. Gray colors are generally blue violet shades that and we create them by intermixing a dye, and the dye is called NN-bis 2 hydro hydroxethyl PPD sulfate. Now we mix it with resorcinol and we end up with gray color, or we mix it with 2-methyl resorcinol and we end up with a slightly different gray color. But if you want blue-gray colors, then you add a second coupler to the mixture. You add M-aminophenol, and that makes the appearance to be more of a blue-gray color. Red tones. There are many types of red tones: Irish, French, Italian, Scottish, American, electric. And here's how we create them. Irish reds are generally created by mixing 3 parts gold and 1 part red orange. That's for very soft Irish reds. French reds are often created by mixing 3 parts of red orange, or using a red or red shades, and then adding either none or a very small amount of gold to them. Italian reds are usually reds that are made with red-violet colors, and Scottish reds are usually cooler reds that are made with a combination of either gold or neutral and red-violet. American reds can be any of the above, but electric reds are generally applied to either bleached or very light hair, and they're usually pure toned. So you don't add a neutral or a gold to an electric red color because you want it to be full intensity. If you add a neutral or a gold to it, it softens it out dramatically, and you'll never have electric color. And then brunette colors. Brunette colors are always browns, but they can be neutral, warm, or they can be neutral cool. But brunette formulas for white hair always start with neutral or gold. Now, what most of you don't realize is, and because most of you are younger colorists, is that when I first started doing hair color, we didn't have a neutral series. The neutral series wasn't created. I think it was in the early 1990s when neutral color was first created. Or and we used to always use gold for better coverage on white hair in the old days. Um, but if you're creating a warm neutral, excuse me, a warm shade of brunette on white hair, then you start with gold. But if you're using just pure neutral by itself, then you can use neutral on white hair and end up with whatever color you want to see, whatever level you want to see. Warm brunette for white hair is created by mixing golden brown plus red orange. Cool brunette for white hair is created by mixing neutral plus red violet. Now look at what I said here. Warm brunette, cool brunette. This means you're making a red shade that is cool by adding a drop of red violet, or by adding warmth by adding a little bit of red orange. But chocolate browns are also warm brunettes, but they have much, much less red orange or red violet in them than auburn shades. So they only have a very tiny amount, maybe as little as 2 or 3 grams of red orange or red violet. When to say no. I love this part. The client is not always right. Sometimes a client will ask for results that cannot be created on their hair, particularly when they have deeper skin tones or very dark eyes. Deeper skin tones mean it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, to create a platinum or silver toner on very um, uh, with very with deep skin tones or dark eyes. Do this. Determine if it's worth your time. Take your cost of doing hair color is your hourly rate times the number of hours that you're going to work on a client, plus the products that you're going to use. So now if a service takes you 3 hours, and your regular rate is $100 per hour. Now I know that some of you charge much more than that, and some of you charge less, but think about this. If your hourly rate is $100 an hour and it takes 3 hours to complete a service, that means your total is going to be $300 plus the products that you use in order to create what you're trying to do. Is your client willing to pay that much money? Talk about it in advance. No surprises, particularly when it comes to paying for services. And then you have nasty clients. Nasty clients upset everyone. They upset both the staff and other clients. Get rid of nasty clients. Tell them thank you for coming in today. You're not going to charge them for today's service, but you will not do them anymore. Period. Don't when they start to cry and when they start begging you, the answer is no. They're upsetting everyone in the salon. Get rid of nasty clients. You get into trouble when you try to please everyone. But a test strand will help to keep you out of trouble. Test strands show you and the client what's going to happen. So make sure that the test strand is large enough to show the true result, particularly when you compare it to the rest of the hair. So if you're doing highlights, do your test strand large enough so that you can actually see the highlight compared to the other one. For instance, I never put highlights, gold or yellow highlights in redheads, because I know that gold and yellow make red color look less vibrant. So if you want brighter vibrant, you have to lighten it first and then tone it a second time with some sort of a red color over the gold or yellow. I know that if not, you can't always do a strand test. Now, we used to have a large flat iron years ago that we could do a strand test with, but we only left it on the hair literally 2 seconds because it would melt the hair. I'm not going to recommend that you try it. Tell your client if they want to book an appointment, please come in for a strand test before you do it so that you can show them what the final color result is going to be. And then they can determine whether or not they want to keep the appointment. And never do corrective work, never do low lights, never do tint backs with permanent color or any product that contains ethanolamine. Here's the reason why. Even if you use permanent color with 10 volume or less, you still increase the damage to the hair because permanent color has a much higher pH than deposit only or semi-permanents or demi-permanent colors. It has a much higher pH, so it increases the damage. And then, even if you're using a product that's non-ammonia, check for the word ethanolamine. Look at your product label, look at your ingredient label, and whether it's on the package or the actual package itself, on the tube or on the package that it comes in, and look for the word ethanolamine. If it's in there, your color is going to do more damage and your color is going to fade. That's what I believe. I believe that ethanolamine is a terrible chemical for your hair. You don't have to take my word for it. Just go and look up the articles that were written that are available on the Natural Institute of Health website, and they explain the damage factor and how this product causes irritation of the scalp and how it causes breakage of the hair. Just go to the websites. Oh, the next. Okay, I've got to